Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It has been a while. We are back with a heroic super guide. Well, not heroic, just the super guide for Blood Queen Lana'thel in the Ice Crown adventure as we eagerly await the Boomsday Project expansion. Blood Queen Lana'thel, it's an interesting mechanic. It's a hero power you have to use before you end your turn. If you cannot use it on your own minion to buff it, or your board is full of minions you've already buffed, you will have to buff his minions, and he starts with pretty high health acolytes or whatever they're called. So basically you just want to build a deck where you have lots of really cheap minions to guarantee that you can play a minion on your turn. Really good cards are the eggs, the Nerubian eggs, and the Devilsaur eggs, because you have a built-in activator which later will give you another high health minion even once it dies. Runic egg is good to give you card draw to make sure you get new minions, that you have something to play on a turn. The dragon egg is good too, because every time it bumps into something it's going to give you another token to potentially buff up. And that's pretty much it. The strategy is pretty straightforward, just lots of cheap minions. Eggs are really good. Echoing Ooze is really good because you play it, buff it, and it duplicates itself, etc. There's very little variation I use from class to class. I'll go through the cards in a bit more detail for the first deck, the Druid deck, but the rest of the classes are pretty much the same theme, might be like one or two cards different. That said, let's jump into Druid. So for Druid, we actually have a few more custom or class cards, like Savage Roar makes a good entry in there because you generally have a wide board, you want to be able to finish her off. Mark of the Lotus for similar reasons to buff your board. Living Mana can get you a very wide board. Otherwise, you have the cheap minions I talked about, Argent Squire with Divine Shield, Bloodsail Corsair to pull up patches. The eggs we talked about, Dragon Egg, Devilsaur, Nerubian, and Runic, the egg package. Firefly is great because it gives you another token to be able to play later once you've played it the first time. Power of the Wild for more buffing. And one Vicious Fledgling because you immediately get to buff that, and once it starts hitting face, you can keep, basically keep buffing itself up, especially if you get Wind Fury on it quickly. The Hunter deck I used is similar theme. Alley Cat gives you double tokens. Put in Argent Squire in this one because of the Divine Shield as well. Fiery Bat, Jeweled Macaw, Timberwolf, and Crackling Razormaw are other good early cheap Hunter cards. Crackling Razormaw can buff something to make it more health durable to keep it around. Kindly Grandmother is one with a good Death Rattle. Scavenging Hyena because you'll have a lot of little beasts. Animal Companion, Unleash the Hound gives you potentially lots of tokens to buff, especially since he has the two kind of dud minions as long as you don't buff them. There's actually a lot of Hunter specific cards in this one, but the same general thing. The thing we always put in there is that egg package that is so effective against this boss. The Mage package is closer to sort of the neutral package that I identified as the real core. You have the egg package, Babbling Book, Mana Worm are the Mage specific cards that make it in. At this point I've also put in Shield Bearers, nice high health, and you get to buff it immediately to be a 2/6. Annoyatrons because of the Divine Shield, Balfan Tide Hunters because it's summoning more minions, and then Loot Hoarders and Novice Engineers for card draw. Just make sure you don't run out of things to play. Lich King is also a nice one, just to always see the interaction you get between the Lich King and her and what the character Blood Queen Lana'thel says. And Frostlich Jaina because just the Death Knights are pretty awesome as well. Paladin is running basically the same neutral package. The things I did put in, this is when I discovered Echoing Ooze is amazing. Start putting that into. Valfin Inquisitor is a Paladin card that made the cut, and Selfless Hero. Mean Street Marshal because you immediately get to buff it, and that's more card draw. Righteous Protector, even better than Argent Squire. Otherwise, the same neutral package we just looked at. Priest is the same dealio. The priest-specific cards that make it in are Northshire Clerics because they're high health 1-drops, Shadow Bombers, just to help speed up the game. I forgot to mention I've been putting Young Dragonhawks in some of these decks because of the built-in Wind Fury, and you immediately get to buff it, so that can do damage and be a cheap kind of threat that she has to remove with her hero power, protecting your other minions. Start including Haunted Creeper as well, Light Health, high health you get to buff and can keep healing stuff, so that's pretty nice. Otherwise, the same neutral package. For Rogue, I went completely neutral package, the same kind of cards we've been talking about with the egg package, card draw, started putting in 2 Horned Creepers, even put in an Egg Napper, searching for the word egg and experimenting with that a little. You get to buff it, get the Raptors, get lots of tokens out of it. With Shaman, you get to include Bloodlust, which is great for being able to finish off the game quicker. Other than that, the Shaman inclusion, basically Tunnel Trog, Totem Golem, just such good potential openers. And Whirling's Appomattox too, for more big Wind Fury you can get out quickly. It's enough health that if he doesn't have minions on board, she can't kill it with her hero power. You get in 10 damage basically by playing this 2-drop. So that's pretty tight. Dust Devils as well for the memes. Can potentially put one out on turn 1, buff it immediately, and that again is 10 damage, bam. So we're basically playing Zoo decks, and the original Zoo is of course Warlock. Because of your hero power where you can tap to draw more cards, it is perfect against Blood Queen Lana'thel in that you basically cannot run out of these very cheap minions that you just want to play and buff immediately. We put in Void Walkers, Soulfires, and Doom Guards for burst to be able to finish things off. Dark Peddler, a really good cheap drop as well. Otherwise, the same kind of neutral cards we've been looking at. Power Overwhelmings as well for even more burst. The deck I took her on with for sort of my first attempt was an aggro pirate deck, all golden, and that works out just fine. If you draw some of your cheap drops early enough, you have your N'Zoth's First Mate, which will pull up Patches, Bloodcell Corsair, etc. You can curve out, you keep having stuff to buff, you should be able to get there pretty comfortably and do a ton of damage. And fortunately, in the case of basic and common cards only, she is a boss that's pretty easy to beat. The strategy we've talked about is just looking for like cheap cards, and there's a lot of basic and common cards that are doing the effects we talk about, like Bylefin Tidehunter, Pantry Spider, Egg Napper, just producing lots of tokens. Scalemancer's a nice one to buff. She can basically never kill that, or you get a huge threat out. Stands Against Darkness. You can just get lots of tokens with lots of cheap common and basic only cards, and otherwise your strategy kind of proceeds pretty much as usual. So that is how to beat her with every class, and even a deck of basic and common cards only. She's on the relatively easy side, but again, these are not heroic bosses. It only really gets challenging in the Ice Crown adventure when you get to beating the Lich King himself with all the classes. Anyway, if you haven't finished up the adventure, good one to go back to and wrap up. Nowhere near as hard as some of the other heroic ones. Hope you have fun with it. See you next time.